Have you ever noticed that the moment you start telling people what you're working on, things suddenly begin to fall apart? The energy shifts. People start asking questions, offering opinions, and before you know it, you've lost your focus. It's almost as if the moment you speak your plans into the world, something invisible starts working against you. Have you felt that? That strange resistance that comes right after you open your mouth about your next move. Here's the truth most people never learn. The more you reveal, the more you risk. When you tell people what you're doing, you invite their energy, good or bad, into your goals. You give them access to something sacred, your intention. And intention is fragile when it's still growing. It doesn't need noise. It doesn't need validation. It needs silence, patience, and discipline. There's a reason powerful people move quietly. They don't broadcast what they're building because they understand something that most people don't. Talking drains energy, but action builds momentum. Every time you talk about your next step, you spend a little of the fire that should have been used to take that step. You might feel good saying it, but what you're actually doing is releasing the power that should have stayed inside you. The world doesn't need to know what you're doing. It needs to see what you've done. You don't owe anyone your plans, your progress, or your process. What you're building behind closed doors is not for everyone's eyes. Some people will never understand it. Some will doubt it, and some will quietly hope it doesn't work. That's why the most powerful move you can make is silence. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's strength under control. It's the quiet confidence that doesn't need to explain itself. And when you learn to master that, when you stop telling people what you do, you'll notice something powerful happens. You stop being predictable. You stop being vulnerable to other people's opinions. You stop leaking energy into conversations that don't deserve your truth. So before you tell anyone what you're planning, pause. Ask yourself, why am I saying this? What do I gain from sharing it? Because if the answer is validation, approval, or attention, you've already lost part of your power. True confidence doesn't announce. It acts. And when it's done, the world can't ignore it. That's what separates those who talk from those who achieve. One group speaks their goals into noise. The other turns silence into results. And the difference between the two is everything. There's something incredibly powerful about being misunderstood in silence. When people can't figure you out, when they can't read your next move, they begin to respect your presence differently. Mystery makes people curious, and curiosity builds influence. The moment you start explaining yourself, the moment you start giving people the blueprint of your mind, you lose a layer of power that can never be reclaimed. In a world obsessed with oversharing, the one who keeps their life private becomes magnetic. There's strength in not being fully known. Think about the people you admire most, the ones who seem unshakable, calm, and in control. You don't know everything about them, do you? You might know what they stand for, but not what they're planning. You can sense their strength, but you can't predict their steps. That's not by accident. That's strategy. They understand the psychology of mystery. They know that silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the presence of control. When you tell people what you're doing, you allow them to step into your space. You open the door for their opinions, their judgments, their doubts. You give them permission to project their fears onto your dreams. And once that happens, your vision starts to blur. It's not because your goal isn't powerful. It's because too many voices begin echoing inside your head. The power of mystery protects you from that noise. It keeps your dreams safe from premature exposure. Some things are not meant to be seen until they're ready. Every great idea begins as a fragile seed. If you plant it too early in the wrong soil, in the wrong ears, it dies before it has a chance to grow. That's why the most successful people understand the art of moving quietly. They build in silence and reveal in strength. You'll never see them coming because they don't waste time talking about what they're going to do. They're too busy doing it, and by the time the world finds out, it's already too late to stop them. That's the power of mystery. It gives you time to grow unbothered, to rise without distraction. We live in a culture where everyone is broadcasting their every move, chasing attention, needing validation. But attention is temporary. Validation fades. What lasts is credibility. And credibility is built through quiet execution. The ones who keep their lives private are often misunderstood, but that's the point. You're not meant to be easily understood. You're meant to be respected. The less people know about you, the more they have to watch you. And when they watch, they wonder. That wonder is what gives your presence power. Mystery doesn't mean being secretive out of fear. It means being selective out of wisdom. It means knowing that not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, your plans, or your energy. Some people are curious just to satisfy their ego, not to understand your purpose. And when you tell them too much, you become predictable. Predictability is the death of influence. Once people know your pattern, they can anticipate you, manipulate you, or compete with you. But when they don't know what's coming next, they have no choice but to respect your unpredictability. There's a certain calm that comes with not needing to explain yourself. You stop defending your dreams. You stop chasing approval. You stop caring who understands you. You start to focus on your mission, not your image. When people can't figure you out, they can't label you. They can't box you in. They can't define you with their limited perspective. You become something they can't control, and that's exactly where your power begins. Mystery also protects your energy. Every time you explain your moves, you're giving away mental and emotional energy that could have been used to take another step forward. You don't owe anyone a play-by-play of your life. You don't need to announce your growth. The tree doesn't make noise when it grows. It just stands taller every season. Be like that tree. Grow quietly, and let your results speak when the time is right. People often confuse transparency with honesty. They are not the same thing. You can be honest without being exposed. You can live truthfully without revealing everything. In fact, your truth becomes more powerful when it's protected. When people know too much about you, they start to feel entitled to your story. They think they have the right to comment, to question, to judge. But when you hold certain parts of yourself back, you remind the world that your life belongs to you, not to their opinions. Mystery keeps people guessing, and in that guessing, they pay attention. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you're capable of. And that's where respect is born. People respect what they can't easily access. They value what they can't easily read. That's why your silence, your privacy, and your restraint will always be more powerful than your words. Because silence invites curiosity, and curiosity gives you influence. Never underestimate the power of being quietly confident. When you walk into a room and don't need to announce who you are, people sense something deeper. They can feel your strength without you saying a word. That's presence, and presence comes from knowing that your power doesn't depend on recognition, it depends on self-control. You don't need to tell people who you are. They'll feel it when they're around you. So protect your mystery. Don't rush to explain your path. Don't feel pressured to prove your progress. Let them wonder. Let them question. Let them talk. You keep building. You keep moving. The less you reveal, the less they can interfere. The less they know, the less they can limit you. And when the time comes for the world to see what you've been working on, your results will speak louder than anything you could have said. Remember this, people can't destroy what they don't understand. That's why your silence will always be your greatest weapon. Stay quiet. Stay focused. Let the mystery protect your mission. It's a harsh truth that most people don't want to face. Not everyone around you is rooting for you to win. Some smile in your face, clap when you succeed, and nod when you speak about your dreams. But deep down, there's a silent wish in their heart that you don't go too far ahead, that you stay within reach, that your success doesn't outshine theirs. This isn't always out of hatred, sometimes it's out of insecurity. Your growth reminds them of where they've stopped growing. Your ambition highlights their complacency, and because of that, they can't fully celebrate you. This is why you must learn to move in silence. The moment you start sharing your plans, you open the door for opinions, comparisons, and subtle sabotage. People will tell you they support you, but watch their energy. Notice how some conversations change when you talk about progress. Notice how enthusiasm fades when you start doing better. The truth is, some people are comfortable with you as long as you're not doing better than them. They cheer for your potential, not your success. Jealousy doesn't always look loud. It doesn't always come in obvious criticism or open hostility. Sometimes it hides behind fake encouragement. Are you sure that's the right move? Or that's a bit risky? Don't you think? It hides in subtle doubt disguised as concern. It's when someone plants tiny seeds of hesitation in your mind because they can't handle the idea of you becoming who you're meant to be. That's why discernment is so important. You need to learn how to read energy, not words. Words can lie, energy cannot. People don't always want you to win because your success changes the dynamics of the relationship. The moment you evolve, the balance shifts. You're no longer the same person they knew, and that makes them uncomfortable. They were used to being equal or above you in some way, and now they feel threatened. When you start setting boundaries, working on yourself, and chasing purpose, you become a mirror reflecting everything they've neglected in themselves. And instead of being inspired, many people choose envy because it's easier to hate than to change. You might think telling people your plans makes you honest or transparent, but sometimes transparency is just vulnerability in disguise. The more people know about your next move, the more they have the opportunity to interfere with it. Not necessarily by direct action, sometimes just by speaking negativity into your space. Words carry energy, and when people speak doubt over your goals, it affects you more than you think. You start second-guessing yourself. You start slowing down. You start wondering if maybe they're right. That's why silence is protection. When no one knows your next move, no one can contaminate it. There's a quote that says, "Work in silence and let success make the noise." It's simple but true. When you stay quiet, you keep your intentions pure. You're not performing for an audience, you're building for yourself. You're not seeking validation, you're creating results. And when those results show up, they speak for you, louder, clearer, and more powerfully than any announcement ever could. That's what makes people truly uncomfortable, when they realize they underestimated you, when they see you've been working in silence while they were busy talking. Understand that jealousy often comes from familiarity. Strangers will support you faster than people you grew up with. Why? Because strangers see your progress without comparison. They don't have a history with you. They don't remember your old self. But people who've known you your whole life, they struggle to see your growth because it reminds them that they stayed the same. You outgrew the version of yourself that fit their comfort zone, and now they don't know how to handle it. So instead of growing with you, they pull away or subtly try to pull you back down. That's why you must be very careful about who you share your wins with. Not every smile is genuine. Some people clap just to count how many steps you've taken. Some people say, "I'm proud of you," but inside they're thinking, "Why not me?" Protect your victories by keeping them sacred. Celebrate privately. The fewer people know, the more peaceful your success will be. The louder you announce, the more resistance you invite. There's wisdom in being quiet. You don't need to post every accomplishment, explain every step, or prove anything to anyone. The results will speak, and when they do, even your silence will echo. Sometimes, the ones who don't want you to win aren't strangers. They're friends, coworkers, even family. That's what makes it painful. You expect love to mean support, but love and understanding aren't always the same thing. People love you for who you were, not always for who you're becoming. And as you evolve, some will distance themselves, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your transformation makes them question their own. Don't take it personally. Growth always exposes the truth in relationships. The ones meant for you will grow with you. The rest will fade. And that's okay. Your job is not to convince people to believe in you. Your job is to believe in yourself so deeply that you don't need their validation. Your silence becomes your strength, and your progress becomes your proof. When people see results they didn't expect, they'll talk anyway. Some will admire you, others will envy you. Let them. You can't control how people feel about your success, but you can control how much access they get to it. Keep your circle small, your moves quiet, and your work relentless. At the end of the day, your purpose isn't for everyone to understand. It's for you to fulfill. Don't waste energy trying to explain your passion to people who've never had one. Don't slow down to make others comfortable with your speed. And don't expect everyone to clap for you. Some people can only handle your potential, not your power. So move in silence. Build in peace. Keep your focus where it belongs, on your mission, not their opinions. The less they know, the less they can interfere. The less you talk, the more you can do. And when your results finally show up, they'll have no choice but to see what you were building all along. Because while they were talking, you were transforming. And by the time they realize it, it'll already be too late to stop you. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you'll ever have. Not because it makes you invisible, but because it makes you focused. In a world filled with noise, opinions, advice, distractions, and unnecessary conversations, your ability to stay silent becomes a weapon of discipline. Every word you speak about your goals takes energy. Every time you explain your next move, you lose a little momentum. Silence protects your focus because it keeps your energy concentrated on action, not explanation. When you talk about what you're going to do, your brain feels a false sense of accomplishment. It tricks you into believing you've already taken a step forward, when in reality, you've only released the pressure that should have fueled your work. That's why some people never finish what they start. They announce every idea before it's even formed. They talk about their goals to everyone who will listen, and then wonder why their motivation disappears. Words give temporary satisfaction. Silence builds long-term results. Focus is fragile. It's like a flame, powerful, but easily extinguished. It only takes one careless conversation, one opinion, one doubt spoken at the wrong time to blow it out. When you keep your goals private, you protect that flame. You allow it to grow stronger without interference. You don't need everyone to understand what you're doing. You just need to keep moving. The ones who talk the most about progress are often the ones who never make any. The ones who stay quiet, who guard their intentions, who focus in silence. Those are the ones who build something real. There's a difference between being busy and being focused. Busy people talk a lot, post a lot, announce a lot, but they scatter their energy in 100 directions. Focused people conserve their energy. They don't need validation or constant discussion. They understand that every distraction, every unnecessary conversation is an opportunity for doubt to enter. Focused people live with intentional silence because they know that talking invites opinions and opinions dilute direction. The moment you let too many voices in, your inner voice gets quieter. You have to understand that your mind only has so much capacity. It can't focus on creating and explaining at the same time. When you're in the process of building something, whether it's a business, a dream, a new version of yourself, your mental energy is your currency. Spend it wisely. Don't waste it explaining your every step to people who don't share your vision. Some won't get it, some won't care, and some will quietly hope you fail. So why give them a seat at your table? Why allow their thoughts to occupy space in your mind that should be reserved for your goals? Silence keeps you grounded. When you stop talking about what you're going to do, you free yourself from the pressure of performance. You're no longer doing things to impress others or to prove them wrong. You're doing them because they align with your purpose. That's real focus. You stop performing and start producing. You stop thinking about how things look and start caring about how they work. You stop feeding your ego and start feeding your growth. There's a powerful peace that comes when you stop explaining yourself. You no longer waste time convincing others why your dreams matter. You stop waiting for approval. You stop second-guessing yourself because someone raised an eyebrow or gave you a half-hearted compliment. Silence builds self-trust. It allows you to listen to your own intuition, your own rhythm, your own pace. You begin to rely less on external validation and more on internal conviction. That's where unshakable focus comes from trusting yourself enough to move quietly, even when no one else believes in you. Every time you stay silent, instead of explaining, you build mental strength. Every time you keep your plans to yourself, instead of seeking validation, you sharpen your focus. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily more talented, they're just more disciplined about what they give their attention to. They don't waste time talking about what they'll do. They just do it, and when they're done, they don't need to convince anyone. The results speak for themselves. Silence also protects your emotional focus. When you tell everyone your plans, you expose yourself to their energy, positive or negative. Some will doubt you, and that doubt becomes a seed in your mind. Some will envy you, and that envy becomes tension around you. Some will try to advise you, and that advice becomes confusion. But when you keep quiet, you eliminate all of that noise. You stay in control of your emotional environment. You protect your peace, and peace is the foundation of focus. You can't build clearly when your mind is crowded. Focus isn't about working harder. It's about protecting what matters. It's about saying no to distractions disguised as discussions. It's about staying quiet when everyone else is busy proving a point. It's about understanding that your goals don't need an audience. They need consistency. When you work in silence, you stop performing and start producing. You stop chasing attention and start attracting results. People notice eventually, not because you told them to, but because your work speaks for itself. There's also humility in silence. When you don't talk about everything you're doing, you leave room for growth without judgment. You can fail privately. You can experiment, adjust, and rebuild without pressure. You're not performing for anyone, so you can stay focused on progress, not perfection. Silence gives you the space to evolve without interference. It allows your process to unfold naturally instead of being rushed by outside expectations. And the truth is, focus and silence go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. Every distraction you entertain weakens your focus. Every unnecessary word you speak about your plans scatters your energy. The people who stay centered, calm, and consistent, those are the ones who achieve the impossible. Not because they talk about it, but because they protect their focus like their life depends on it. So learn to stay quiet when your instincts tell you to. Learn to say less and do more. Learn to let your silence speak for you. Because when you stop broadcasting your every move, something powerful happens. You start hearing yourself again. You start reconnecting with your drive, your discipline, your clarity. You stop chasing validation and start chasing excellence. And when that happens, your silence becomes unstoppable momentum. The world doesn't need to hear your plans, it needs to witness your results. Protect your focus like it's sacred. Don't waste it on explanations. Don't leak it through conversations, and don't let anyone distract you with their noise. Silence is not emptiness. It's precision. It's direction. It's the mark of someone who's no longer talking about the life they want, but quietly building it, step by step in the shadows, until the light has no choice but to find them. Privacy is not secrecy. It's self-respect. It's knowing that not everything in your life deserves to be seen, discussed, or analyzed by others. In a world that constantly demands openness, the ability to keep certain parts of your life private is a rare kind of power. Privacy is emotional security. It's the quiet understanding that you don't owe anyone access to your thoughts, your heart, or your struggles. It's realizing that peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from being protected. When you share too much, you give people the opportunity to touch parts of your life they were never meant to hold. The more you explain, the more vulnerable you become to judgment, gossip, and misunderstanding. Not everyone who listens cares, and not everyone who cares can handle the truth. Some people are curious, not compassionate. They want to know what's happening in your life. Not because they wish you well, but because they crave information. The more you give, the more you lose control over your own story. Privacy gives that control back to you. There's a deep strength in being unexplainable. When people can't fully read you, they can't use your emotions against you. They can't manipulate what they don't understand. They can't twist what you never said. That's why the wisest people speak less about what truly matters. They've learned that every time you open up to the wrong person, you hand them a piece of your emotional security. And once it's gone, it's hard to get it back. Privacy is how you protect your emotional energy from being drained by people who don't deserve to know your heart. We live in a culture that glorifies exposure. Everyone is oversharing online their opinions, their relationships, their problems, their dreams. People have mistaken transparency for authenticity. But true authenticity isn't about public display. It's about inner alignment. You can be real without being exposed. You can live truthfully without turning your life into a public show. Every time you overshare, you invite opinions, and opinions turn into noise. That noise becomes a weight on your emotions, forcing you to carry expectations that don't belong to you. Privacy, on the other hand, gives you emotional freedom. It allows you to live on your own terms, without the constant pressure of external validation. Privacy also builds boundaries, and boundaries are what keep you emotionally stable. When you set limits on what you share, you protect your inner peace. You stop giving people the power to affect your mood or your decisions. You stop depending on approval. You stop feeling the need to justify your choices. The more private you become, the more peace you experience, because you start realizing how little other people's opinions actually matter. You begin to live for purpose, not performance. You stop performing happiness for the world and start building genuine contentment within yourself. Emotional security means you're not afraid of being misunderstood. It means you've outgrown the need to explain your every move. You know your intentions, you know your truth, you know your path, and you no longer feel the urge to make others comfortable with it. The less you explain, the more at peace you become, because explanation invites confusion. The people who truly care won't need constant access to your emotions to know you're okay. They'll respect your silence. The ones who demand constant updates only do so because they feed off your openness. When you become selective with what you share, you reclaim your emotional strength. Privacy also allows healing to happen in peace. When you go through something painful, a betrayal, a disappointment, a loss, the natural impulse is to vent. But healing isn't a performance, it's a process. The more you expose your wounds, the more you delay their recovery. When too many people know your pain, you begin to carry not just your own emotions, but their reactions to it. Some will pity you, some will judge you, and others will remind you of it long after you've moved on. Healing in private gives you the space to process, to reflect, and to rebuild without interference. It allows you to find strength quietly so that when you reemerge, you do so whole, not half-healed and half-dependent on validation. Privacy also filters the people around you. When you start keeping your life private, the ones who are there for curiosity will fade away. The ones who are genuine will stay. You'll begin to notice who is interested in you and who is interested in your story. People who love gossip lose interest when there's nothing to talk about. People who love you stay even when there's silence. Privacy doesn't just protect you, it reveals the truth about others. And make no mistake, privacy doesn't mean isolation. It doesn't mean cutting everyone off or becoming cold. It simply means being wise enough to know what's sacred and keeping it sacred. Your dreams, your relationships, your next moves, your struggles, not everything is meant for the public eye. The more you protect what matters, the more powerful it becomes. Your silence becomes your armor, your discretion becomes your strength, and your inner world becomes your sanctuary. The most peaceful people aren't the ones with perfect lives. They're the ones who've mastered emotional privacy. They've learned that not everything needs to be shared, not every emotion needs to be expressed, and not every moment needs to be public. They've learned that their peace is too valuable to be placed in the hands of others. They share only with those who've earned the right to hear, not those who are simply nearby. When you make privacy a habit, you begin to notice how light life feels. You stop overthinking what people will say. You stop comparing your life to others. You stop needing to defend your choices. You start existing freely, quietly, purposefully. You begin to enjoy your life for what it is, not for how it looks. And that shift, that quiet internal stability, is what emotional security truly feels like. Remember this, not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Your emotions, your dreams, your pain, these are sacred things. Don't hand them to people who haven't earned your trust. Protect your emotional security like you protect your home. Only open the door to those who bring peace, not noise. Because once you learn to value your privacy, you'll realize that peace was never about having a perfect life. It was about having control over who gets to touch your spirit. And that, more than anything, is the essence of true power. There comes a point in your life when words stop meaning much. You get tired of explaining what you're doing, tired of proving your worth, tired of talking about your dreams to people who don't understand them. You begin to realize that talking doesn't build anything. Discipline does, consistency does, effort does. There's nothing more powerful than quiet work that speaks for itself. When you stop announcing and start producing, you enter a different level of power. The kind that doesn't seek attention but commands respect. Letting your work do the talking isn't about silence for the sake of pride. It's about mastering patience. It's knowing that real results take time, and that time doesn't need an audience. It's about understanding that words are cheap when they aren't backed by results. Anyone can talk about what they're going to do. Only a few have the grit to actually do it. The world is full of dreamers who never start and talkers who never finish. But those who let their work speak, they're remembered. Their results become their reputation. There's something deeply magnetic about people who don't talk much about their plans. They move differently. They focus differently. They don't waste time convincing others. They're too busy building. Their confidence doesn't come from being seen. It comes from knowing what they're capable of. And when their results finally surface, the world is forced to pay attention. You don't have to beg people to believe in you when your work leaves no room for doubt. That's the power of quiet execution. It silences critics without confrontation. When you talk about what you're going to do, you invite judgment, expectation, and often resistance. People start watching, waiting for you to fail. Some want to see if you'll live up to your words. Others secretly hope you won't. The more you talk, the more pressure you place on yourself to perform for others rather than for purpose. But when you stay silent and let your work evolve in private, you give yourself the freedom to make mistakes, to learn, to grow without the weight of an audience. You're not performing, you're preparing. Letting your work speak for you requires humility. It means being okay with being underestimated. It means being comfortable in the shadows while others seek the spotlight. It means knowing that the world doesn't need to know every step you take, because the results will eventually tell the story better than you ever could. When you operate this way, you no longer crave applause. You crave excellence. You stop trying to prove people wrong and start trying to prove yourself right. That's when your power multiplies. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes from knowing you're working while everyone else is talking. It's the peace that comes from staying consistent when no one's watching. It's waking up early, staying disciplined, putting in the effort day after day without needing validation. That's what separates achievers from dreamers. Achievers don't broadcast. They build. They understand that results are the only real proof of commitment. You can't argue with evidence. You can question words. You can ignore promises. But you can't deny results. And here's something people forget. When you let your work do the talking, it's not just about success. It's about credibility. Words might get you attention, but consistency earns respect. When people see that you don't just talk, you deliver, they start trusting you differently. They start believing in your integrity, your character, your standards. You become known not for what you say, but for what you produce. That's the kind of reputation that lasts, because it's built on action, not performance. There's also protection in letting your work speak. When you stop revealing every move, you eliminate unnecessary competition. No one can copy what they can't see. No one can sabotage what they don't know. By the time others realize what you've been doing, it's already done. They're left wondering how you moved so fast, how you built so quietly, how you made it happen without noise. That's the power of strategy. Quiet progress is more effective than loud intention. And here's another truth. People respect consistency more than charisma. You can talk well, dress well, and sound convincing, but if you don't deliver, you lose credibility. People might forget what you said, but they'll never forget what you did. Your actions are permanent. Your results are evidence. They tell the world who you are without you having to say a word. The greatest leaders, thinkers, and builders didn't waste time arguing their worth. They showed it through their work. Their silence wasn't weakness. It was discipline. When you let your work do the talking, you stop chasing approval. You stop seeking recognition. You start working for fulfillment, not applause. You realize that your work is the loudest form of self-expression you'll ever have. It tells the world about your character, your priorities, your perseverance. And when your work speaks for you, it speaks with clarity, without bias, without exaggeration. It simply says, this is who I am. This is what I've built. This is what I stand for. There's a certain peace that comes when you no longer need to prove yourself verbally. You don't react to doubt. You don't explain your decisions, and you don't chase validation. You just work. And over time, your consistency becomes undeniable. People who doubted you start watching quietly. People who ignored you start paying attention. The same voices that once questioned your vision now echo your success. That's the beauty of results. They change conversations without you having to say a single word. But letting your work speak isn't easy. It requires patience, self-control, and faith. You have to be willing to be silent for long stretches, to be unseen while others are noticed, to be steady while others are loud. You have to trust the process even when it's slow. But that's where character is built. In the quiet seasons, in the unseen hours, in the consistent effort that no one claps for. Every small, unseen act of discipline is a sentence in the story your results will eventually tell. So don't waste energy proving your worth through words. Don't argue with people who can't see your vision. Don't announce what you're still building. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them doubt. You just keep working. Because one day your work will be so undeniable that it will speak louder than every doubt, every rumor, every opinion ever spoken about you. And on that day, you won't need to say a word. The evidence will say it all. Remember this. Results are louder than promises. Progress is louder than potential. Effort is louder than excuses. Let your work do the talking, and it will speak a language that even your critics can't ignore. Because when the noise fades and the attention shifts, what will remain is what you built, quietly, persistently, faithfully. And that will always be louder than words. At the end of the day, the world doesn't remember the ones who talked about doing great things. It remembers the ones who actually did them. The noise fades, the opinions disappear, and what's left standing is your work. The proof of your discipline, your focus, and your resilience. That's your legacy. That's your real voice. You don't have to announce your purpose, live it. You don't have to defend your vision, build it. You don't have to explain your greatness, embody it. Silence isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's knowing that not every move deserves an announcement, and not every victory needs validation. The loudest people rarely go the farthest. The ones who master stillness, who protect their process, who guard their focus, they rise above the noise and lead through results. So keep moving quietly. Keep building what's yours in private. Let your success echo in places where your words never reached. Because one day, your work will speak for you. And when it does, it will speak with a power no voice can match. Let your silence tell your story. And let your results be the proof that you never needed to explain your worth.